I think that the US and China have found a way to close the gap on various issues that were under consideration. So I do think it's going to be a significant deal. Now, does it resolve the big picture rivalry between US and China? No. But it is in line with what I would have expected to happen this year.
Investors certainly appear bullish going into the week, although there is also the prospect of a Federal Reserve rate cut on Thursday also. How likely are we to get a deal of substance?
I think it is very likely. And I think that there's several components to it. There's the TikTok sale, which apparently will be signed live on TikTok, which is quite funny and interesting. But also there is supposed deal, or at least a framework between rare earths and chips and semiconductors. So it does appear that the US and China have resolved this very big sticking point between them.
Okay, so you're expecting some real movement on key issues, and along with an understanding that at this point, at least, the US and China, even if they wanted to, can't really decouple from one another?
Yes, my view is that decoupling is impossible. And it's, it's impossible because not just the two countries have such a deep economic relationship, but it's because American allies also have a very deep and profound relationship with China. And if the United States of America is not willing to incur the pain of decoupling, how can it ask countries like Australia or the Netherlands or Japan to do the same?
Do you expect there will still be issues on the table after this meeting?
Absolutely. I mean, the two countries are geopolitical rivals, and new issues will come up. There is also sort of a sense that China and the US both want to give themselves like 5 to 10 years of a runway to try to decouple. So we, of course, know the Australia rare earth deal is part of America's bid to be in a better situation 5 years from now. China's obviously also hoping that over the next 5 years they can improve their position in semiconductors. So we will have this playbook come back again and again. However, I suspect that most investors just ignore a plethora of history and game theoretical evidence that when the world is multipolar, even enemies that are about to go to war, they struggle to decouple. And it comes back down to this issue of trying to, herd your allies into coherent wholes. It's very difficult to do that.
Does that mean that the Australia-US critical minerals and rare earths deal is likely to have had a significant impact on the US-China trade talks this week?
Yes, you could see it that way. I mean, the United States of America feels a lot better about prospects of where it's going to be 5 years from now, if, of course, it gets some of that refining of rare earths out of China. So yes, I would agree that made them more comfortable giving in on some other issues to China.
What is your take on whether the US-Australia deal, what it means for Australia's relationship with its biggest trading partner, China?
Well, I don't think that it's anything that's going to irk the Chinese. I mean, the Chinese themselves know that once they pull the card of rare earths, it's a one-time only use. The rest of the world is going to do something to try to find other ways to refine it, other places to refine it. If it's not Australia, it's going to be Canada. I mean, this isn't like Australia is solving some problem from America that without Australia would not have been solved. And Chinese officials are going to understand that. This is the world that they live in, and that's the card they played. They chose to play it, and it's a one-time only use.
Australia is trying to walk a very fine line between its biggest trading partner and its biggest security ally, the United States. Do you see a time when Australia is going to be pushed to choose, and will that push come from China?
No, I think that push will come from the United States, and it will come when China does something extremely aggressive and assertive. However, that will also be, the beginning of an end for this rivalry between the US and China. What I mean by that, the Chinese are not ready for a bipolar world, a world that's clearly bifurcated, because the West, with all of its allies, is still extremely powerful. And so I wouldn't worry about this issue if I was Australian, because the Chinese are in no rush to force some sort of a coalescence of the Western alliance against them. In fact, they're trying to prolong multipolarity as long as possible. And so I think that Australia, for the next 5 to 10 years, will not be forced to choose between the two sides. And it's very important that Australia uses President Trump's narratives, his own words, and say, look, it's also Australia first. If you want us to be a committed and competent an additive ally, we need to generate revenue so that we can do R&D, so we can spend on military. And so that means we need to continue to trade with China. And at the end of the day, the goods that Australia trades with China are not technologically advanced. It's mostly commodities. As such, it's not making China great again. It's simply making Australia a very strong ally. And I think that has to be said to the American administration very firmly.
If the push comes, will the trigger be Taiwan?
Absolutely. The trigger to Australia having to choose sides will be something extreme, something pretty dramatic. And so that's why I just wouldn't worry about these back and forth negotiations. Australia should not be picking sides as far as I'm concerned. It should remain aloof, and it should focus on its own interests.
Marko Papic, good to speak to you.
Absolutely, Kirsten, and it's a pleasure to speak with you as well.